Hello everybody, welcome to Whatculture. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
In person.
Whoa!
He's right there because, you know, when the big guns come out left, right and centre, they're worth talking about. Speaking of which, Professor X seems to be in the Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness trailer, and there's quite a few different things to break down. Now, we're going to be touching on one specific set of leaks that happened, I think, across the last year. They're out there already, and we're not going to be talking about the rest of the stuff that leaked in regards to what is potentially this movie's entire storyline. I know there's a lot out there in terms of what this could potentially be, but we're going to focus on one thing because now that it's in the trailer, it is the one thing worth talking about for now. So you've kind of been warned, it's kind of spoilers, we're kind of relying on a leak thing, but that is the big old talking point. Seems like Professor X is in the MCU.
I mean, it's gotta be, right? Like, that was like such a crazy thing to wake up to. You know, I woke up expecting to enjoy some nice Super Bowl trailers, and then I was just like, bam, Professor X is finally in the MCU, and obviously you hear, what seems to be Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier in the trailer, and like you said, this seems to be corroborated by some things that came out last year.
Yes, so the thing to touch on in regards to the earlier leaks is that some sketches that, like I said, the whole plot seemed to leak for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and there's a lot more stuff you can get lost in with that, but to focus on one part of it, which, like I say, I think is worth highlighting, picking out of that sludge, is the thing that lines up with this, because the scene that leaked is exactly what's in the trailer, which seems to be Doctor Strange in some alternate reality, surrounded by what look like a bunch of Ultron robots.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that in a second. Going up against Professor X. Now, that in the sketch, it was Strange surrounded by a bunch of robots with Professor X opposite him on like a side shot, in what looked like a more futuristic version of his wheelchair, which our good old Joe Johnston, one of our editors, pointed out might be their version of doing the 1990s version of the X-Men, the more futuristic chair that he had in that show, which would make sense. You know, when Spidey came across to the MCU, they did the very old school look to his costume, which is obviously where he ends up at the end of No Way Home. And so I wonder if that's what they're doing, the sort of traditional look of the characters. Now, there's a lot more you can pull from than the Fox animated show, but that's a big cultural touchstone, so why not?
Well, totally, man. Like, everyone knows and seems to love the 90s TV show, so like, why not, you know? But when it comes to... we'll get copyright struck. We don't have to do that. Stop that. What I was going to say is, when it comes to like X-Men in particular, like obviously the Fox X-Men universe, right? That was kind of like the first soft foray into multiverse stuff anyway, I would say. You obviously had the original trilogy, which kind of, you know, went into First Class. There was so much retconning going on. There was so much time travel that changed the timelines. Obviously you had Deadpool, obviously you had Logan. So we've already kind of seen different versions of Charles Xavier in particular over the years. So it's kind of fascinating that he's the character seemingly here that we're getting the focus on, because, you know, we have in a way seen like variants of Charles across the years, and now it feels like we're getting another one. Do you think, that's my question, this is going to be another variant, or do you think this is literally the Charles from one of the Fox eras?
I would assume that because they kind of played that card with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, they've done, you know, this is the actual Spidey. And it is Sam Raimi directing this as well, so there's a little bit of a link there as well. I would assume that it is actually the Professor X that you get. That's why you get Patrick Stewart back. It's his voice. It very much sounds like his voice in the trailer. He's credited as like mysterious voice or something like that. But like I said, if you're leaning on the fact that this is potentially already leaked, then it definitely has to be the character at least. But yeah, I would say that it's going to be him, because you just play on the fact that that character is super intelligent, knows everything, has already transported his consciousness around, has already time traveled and done all the stuff in Days of Future Past. And I think it would make sense to just, if anything, it elevates that character and just sort of brings him across. And if you're going to get Patrick Stewart, then he might as well play the version that everyone knows anyway.
That's it, man, because I don't think you can make the mistake of teasing the big crossover with the Fox X-Men universe and not like follow through on it properly the first time. Obviously, we had Evan Peters in WandaVision showing up as what we thought as the actual Quicksilver from that universe. It turned out not to be that. He was just like some dude, Ralph Boner, I think he was called, which obviously everyone was disappointed by. Like when he showed up at Wanda's door in that episode, like everyone went nuts. And then the eventual reveal was kind of back.
They didn't do a single thing with it.
They didn't. So I don't think they would ever make that same mistake twice. I feel like this has to like go through, and for them to deliver on it like they seem to promise here. And like you said, you know, No Way Home, like that was such a huge success because it had everybody wondering about whether or not those Spideys were going to come back. You had the villains coming back. It was very much relying on nostalgia for both good and bad. And I feel like the only thing close to the Spideys coming over in a Spider-Man movie is to finally integrate, at least in some somewhere with the Fox's X-Men series, whether that's, Professor X, whether that's potentially, and I actually haven't seen the leaks, so this definitely isn't a spoiler, it's just something I'm thinking about, whether you get, Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine or something like that, you know what I mean? I feel like they would bring those big cinema pop moments in a way that only the Spider-Mans could.
I kind of hope as well that if they do, because we should both clarify, me and Josh don't know the leaks overall. We asked our comics editor, Dan Durkin, what the hell is this thing? And he pointed me towards that specific sketch of Professor X and Doctor Strange, which, like I say, leaked a few months ago. There are also talks, and like I said, we're coming from a place of not knowing if this is true, talks of the Ultron robots that are in that scene belonging to Tony Stark. Somehow Stark is involved in the overall throne scene that seems to be taking place in. And there's mention of a group called the Illuminati.
Yes.
Not a clue who those people are, but assumedly Professor X is one of them. I know that hardcore fans or followers of comics overall will be screaming, of course that's what it is, but we don't know. And I'm guessing that most MCU people won't know either. So they'll be waiting to unveil whatever that stuff is going forward. But that is a way to tie all of it together. And there's so much they can pull from. Like you said, they could do the likes of Hugh Jackman, and they could bring all these other legacy characters in. I would hope, though, that in the conversation of, who is the next Wolverine, who is the next, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, that they get him to pass the torch on. That they maybe use Professor X, they use Patrick Stewart's version of that character to bridge the realities and introduce a new Wolverine or introduce a new Storm or whatever. I think maybe you play the legacy thing, you get Halle Berry back as Storm or whatever, but that's, you very much play the multiverse card and go, well, this was over here and, but it's tale for another time.
I mean, they're definitely playing the multiverse cards myself in this thing. I have to watch this trailer like 15 times just to pick up on everything, because like you said, there's so many like juicy implications in there. There are the Ultron bots. There are like things like a version of Captain Marvel appearing to be in there. There are like 10 different versions of Doctor Strange in this trailer. And there's so much to kind of pick up on it, trying to figure out, are they like variants we haven't seen? Are they variants we have seen? Which universe does this belong to? How is this going to get fixed? If there's only one person I would trust with a movie like this, and it's Sam Raimi. It's a good thing that they've got him.
The thing is, that's one thing to point out as well, is that it is Sam Raimi directing. I was saying to you before we were recording that he hasn't done a superhero movie since Spider-Man 3. Which, like, what do you think of that? Because you're more of a Raimi fan than me. Like, what's your general expectations of, will he just have fun with all this stuff? You think he's the guy that you give all the multiverse potential to? Obviously, there's Feige, there's all the showrunners, or the wider sort of Marvel brain trust saying this is how things have to go. But he's a guy that can capitalize on this stuff, and I kind of wonder if this whole movie's just going to be, here's the Fantastic Four, and here's the X-Men, and here's Deadpool, and here's all these different things.
I mean, it is wild, and to me, potentially a missed opportunity that so far we have like a bunch of different Marvel characters, like you said, we've got this Fox thing. The Spider-Man thing that Raimi was directly involved with, like he didn't have anything to do with, so maybe we're going to see some Spider-Man coming over. But when it comes to Sam Raimi, generally, to me, like he's why I was excited to begin with. I actually didn't think the first trailer for this movie that was attached to No Way Home was that good. It didn't get me personally excited. I think this is much better. And just seeing Sam Raimi back, because I went back, because I love, his Spider-Man trilogy, and I went back to watch them in the run to No Way Home. And even Spider-Man 3 obviously gets a lot of crap. I actually like that movie, but it's directed in a way that is so visually interesting and is so exciting when it comes to how the action is staged. It's funny that Spider-Man 3 and No Way Home have finales set on a bit of scaffolding. And I'm not going to say, Spider-Man 3 is better because it films that finale better, but it's interesting the way he used that space. He managed to bring, in my opinion, more personality and character out of a bland setting. So when it comes to something as mad as the multiverse, I think he has the directing chops. I think he edits in such a kinetic, energetic way that I want to see what he does with this. And I hope it's not, you see that from the trailer at least, I think that it's not going to be the regular kind of like bland Marvel action. It seems like it's got something else visually to it.
Well, that's the thing. I forget the name of the director from Doctor Strange 1, but very much
Scott Derrickson. He was
there. You go. Debuted that whole kaleidoscopic visuals and everything's falling through everything else, and we got some of that in No Way Home. And I kind of wonder how much that has to be, what Doctor Strange brings to any of the movies that he's in. You get bits and pieces of that. But I like that's what I was saying. Like I think the way that Sam Raimi directs and, like you said, the way he paces stuff, he very much has an association of just campy fun. I think the original Spider-Man trilogy is phenomenal because of that. And if he can bring any strand of that along, where you're just along for the ride, okay, what's next, what are we doing, and that gets followed up with X number of X-Men characters, then that could be pretty special.
There was for me a pristine Sam Raimi shot in the trailer, and that's when it kind of like spins upside down when Strange wakes up, and I was like, that's Sam Raimi, that is amazing. Please give me more of that. But like you said, it has that double whammy of intrigue for me, and this has got me so much more excited for it than I was, because I've got this Sam Raimi kind of element to it. But like you said, now we've got this mystery, now we've got like this added element of what is going to be pulled in from the universe. How are they going to tie this up? What variants are we going to see? It really feels like, after a kind of muted, in my opinion, and beginning to phase 4.
Yes.
Like No Way Home's absolutely
flatlining, you might say. I might say.
You might say.
I would say.
No Way Home's kind of kicked the door open, and then the Multiverse of Madness is kind of struggling to keep it shut, and I hope Doctor Strange can't keep it shut because I'm so excited about all of the possibilities that come from this concept.
Yeah, I feel like the amount of stuff in this trailer, like you said, the first one they put out that was attached to No Way Home, I wonder if that was specifically edited to just not take the thunder away from Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and maybe they didn't want too many headlines freaking out, they didn't want to debut the likes of Professor X or whatever. Whereas now, like Josh is saying, there's the amount of different shows that have now been put out. We're sort of waiting for the next big thing to happen, and that very much could be the debut of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, whatever else they're going to do. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Is it even Professor X? Is it even Patrick Stewart? Yes, it pretty much is. But we'll see. For now, I've been Scott from Whatculture.com.
I mean, the variant Josh from Whatculture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.